If I asked you to get a piece of paper and something to write with, and to make a numerical list of all the things that you would be willing to die for, how long is your list?
The Panther 48.
Willing to die for.
The Panther 48.
Willing to die for. How long is your list?
What is the tribal self?
The Panther
The
48.
tribal self is what goes above the immediate acquaintances of the social.
Willing to die for.
The family, the people you know, live next door.
You would be willing to die for.
Tribal
The
self.
Panther 48.
I'm talking about those movies, those yet unheard.
Peace and power. Once again, this is your Panther 48. This is your big brother site calling out of Texas. I have with me the other two members of the Panther 48. Brother E, our Minister of Information Emeritus, calling out of Florida. Peace and power, Brother E.
Greetings.
And we have the Panther 48's esteemed chairman, Brother Walk, also the chairman of the San Diego chapter of the Black Panther Party, and he's the national chief of staff of the People's Black Panther Party, headquartered out of Atlanta, chaired by Chairman Yanga Nkrumah. Peace and power, Brother Walk.
All the people.
Anyway, today we've been building one of the things that we've been working on. The Panther 48 has been working on. We've went back to foundation. We've been back to foundation building, and we decided to go through the process of properly structuring a chapter and the proper education that a Panther needs. So over the next few weeks, the Panther 48 is dedicating itself to creating a class, sort of like a master class for revolutionaries. So all true revolutionaries, definitely all true Panthers, need to tune in to what we'll be doing the next few weeks. And we would love if any of y'all have some ideas that you feel like that should be added to what we're sharing that we haven't talked about. Get in contact with us, and I'll leave Brother Ward's email address in the comment section. Get in contact with us, or you could just simply hit us up in the comments itself. Get in the comments, like the video, get in the comments, and we'll love to have you on the show, or have you, if you have something valuable to give, we'll love to have you on the show and allow you to build with us on structuring a Panther chapter and educating Panthers. That's what we're going to deal with. So today we're going to start at the very base of this idea. We're starting at the very beginning. We're starting with what we call the COL, the Commission of Liberation. And I'm just going to read what that is, and then the brother's going to get into it, and we're going to chop it up for y'all. We're going to do what we always do. We're going to define, we're going to develop, and then we're going to defend the idea. So the Commission of Liberation. A post of chairperson shall be established for the purpose of liberating the Black community and raising the consciousness of the people. To facilitate this commission, the chairperson will erect a Panther chapter in the Black community for the purpose of serving, quote unquote, serving. Pay attention to that, because all the words that we use are used for a reason. The immediate needs of the people. Also for the purpose of educating the people in the proper methods of revolution. Now, the Commission of Liberation, to give a quick breakdown of what that is, when you're given a commission, matter of fact, I'm gonna do the vocab rehab right quick so we can understand what these words mean. Because we might not know what commission means. When people hear that, they may think of the mafia. These Panther brothers are trying to create a mafia, and that ain't what commission means. The commission means a person that's been delegated a mission. So commission, to be formally asked or authorized to create or perform a specific task. That's what it means to be commissioned. In the military, you can have what's called a CO or NCO. A CO is a commissioned officer, and an NCO is a non-commissioned officer. So commission, again, is to be formally. That means someone has requested or asked you or gave you the authority to create or perform a specific task. In this instance, what we're talking about is that someone or a particular group has commissioned a chairperson or given them the authority to create a Panther chapter in their neighborhood, in their realm of responsibility, and build that chapter so that chapter can liberate the community, as the commission says. Liberation, vocab rehab, the act of setting someone free from imprisonment, slavery, or oppression, freedom from limits on thought or behavior. Now I'm gonna open the floor and let the other brothers come in and give y'all a little bit deeper detail on what this means and why we decided to build on it today.
Well,
let me start here. The first thing I want to just announce is when we're talking about a commission and establishing a commission, you have to go back to first and foremost, under what authority does the person or groups that's establishing that commission operate from? Because what you have to realize that some of the things that we deal with within the Panther formations is that people may call shots or tell somebody to do something, but they're not coming from any position of authority. And that position of authority, as it applies to establishing a commission of liberation, has to do with people that hold themselves accountable for anybody or any organization or any group that they set forth to commission. So if the people that I commission are failing, that's my failure. I have to hold myself to the utmost responsibility of anybody or any group that I set forth into a commission. Unfortunately, sometimes people make calls and make shots simply because they feel like they're in a position of power, but that position of power and what they're calling someone to do is not something that they're prepared to do or something that they have experience in. They're more or less just trying to puppeteer without addressing the backing to make sure that what it is they're asking to be done is something that, number one, they've done, or number two, they willing to do, and number three, that they've seen through and willing to hold themselves completely responsible and accountable for that act of commission. And so I think it's very important that we recognize that any commission of liberation is coming from, especially when we're talking about it here on the Panther 48, is coming from an authority position of those people that are stating, hey, this is what we know to be tried, true, and tested. This is based on research. This is based on field accountability. And this is based on the need and the proper steps to go about guidance as it applies to initially carrying out the conduction of liberation for our people.
When you're talking about a commission of liberation, you're dealing with a national organization. You're dealing with an organization that is at least national, and they're developing chapters all over the nation for a particular purpose. So let me create this scenario. Let's say E is out in Florida. He has a lot of things going on in the Black community that he wants to tackle, that he wants to deal with. And police brutality, let's make them one of them. Let's say, and E is an educator. So I'm gonna go to that. E feels and believes that it's very important and instrumental for the liberation of the people, for the people to start getting the correct education. So E and a ragtag group of partners that he done got with, that done passed the autobiography from Malcolm X around each other, that done read Revolutionary Suicide a couple of times, they've decided that they want to get active. So they done went to the school board meetings, they done went to a few places. Then let's say EC, a Panther 48 video on YouTube, and the Panther 48 brothers may have Aaron Michaels on one day. They might have David Foreman on one day. They may be building with a couple of other brothers from different formations, and E decides like, wow, that's what helped me accomplish these goals. That's what helped me do what it is that I'm trying to do, what Malcolm has inspired me to do, what Marcus Garvey reading his teachings has inspired me to do. That's it. Those brothers have some ideas I can use. So E hit a few people up, let's say he contact War connects him with a National Central Committee. And E says, I want to create a chapter in my city. We don't have a Panther chapter. I have 4 brothers here with me. So ideally, what National will be able to do is send someone to E's city to build with E, train with E, educate E, see that E is the person that's dedicated to performing these duties, and they would give E the Commission of Liberation, the COL. E would become the commission officer. So he would become the chairman who is tasked with the responsibility of liberating the Black community. See, a Panther chapter is not formed just to have a Panther chapter, just so you can walk around with black on, or just so you can carry guns to the streets. That's not what a Panther chapter is formed for. To kind of quote Stokely Carmichael, he said one time, the brother said, and I'm supposed to paraphrase it because I can't remember the quote verbatim, But the brother said one time, he said that the primary goal of a revolutionary is to teach and uplift. The primary goal of a revolutionary is to teach and uplift. Violence is not the primary goal of a revolutionary. However, violence is an inevitable consequence of the revolutionary's primary goal, for the simple fact that whenever you try to create something new, that which is already there will start to resist your efforts and fight back against you. I say that so that I can paint this picture, and then I'm gonna pass the mic to Brother E. The primary goal of the revolutionary is not to create Panther chapters. The primary goal of the revolutionary is to liberate the Black community. The Panther chapter is just a tool used to reach the primary goal. Being a revolutionary is not the goal. Being free is the goal. Being a revolutionary is just a channel that's used to get to the goal. That's the primary goal of any true freedom fighter and liberator. The Commission of Liberation in the process of building a Panther chapter helps you create the goal. E has been given the Commission of Liberation. The Commission of Liberation says the opposed chairperson shall be established for the purpose of liberating the Black community and raising the conscience of the people. To facilitate this commission, the chairperson will erect a Panther chapter in the Black community for the purpose of serving the immediate needs of the people. Also for the purpose of educating the people in the proper methods of revolution. Now let's look at this. It says how to carry out the COL, how to carry out the Commission of Liberation. One is to recruit and train a functional central committee. Brother Walt, in your opinion and your ideas, being that you're still in the field, you're still working, you're still recruiting, training central committees, you're still dealing with the masses of the people every day on this level, the key word in this is a functional, not just a central committee. It says recruit and train a functional central committee. Can you give the people an idea of what that is or what that looks like?
Well, when we say a functional central committee, we're talking about Panther members that have specific roles that are necessary for a what we call an embodiment of a chapter. And when we say embodiment, we're talking about Panthers that are able to keep what we call the mechanisms going or operate within an organ structure that is able to function. So let's just start with the word functionality or function. When we're looking at this, we're looking at a total body functionality. In other words, what organs are necessary to be able to have a complete function. And so that chairperson that is commissioned to establish that central committee must put certain people in positions and certain operations in position in order to create that total body function. And so through that, in terms of creating a functional chapter, one good example to use would be establishing through a chief of staff, establishing a minister of information, a minister of education, a community liaison officer, minister of finance, a secretary. But key element positions to be able to first and foremost develop the basic needs in order to go out and establish and start dealing with raising the consciousness of the people and building from that. And as people come on board and want to join the ranks, you need to make sure that a central committee is able to function within a general body so that the people can have some duties and responsibilities and some objectives to start going out and carrying that out, which goes into what we call our local objectives. But in order to carry out the local objectives, you have to have a functional central committee or a body of people that are going to deal with the day-to-day internal logistics of what it takes for that chapter to move around.
Now, when we're talking about the Central Committee, I think it's important for the people to understand why that Central, and Brother Ward just gave us some nice details and understanding of the type of people that need to be able to be on that Central Committee. But that Central Committee is essentially an extension of the chairperson, because the chairperson has the commission to liberate the community. So in order to do that, the chairperson is just a person, male or female. There's no limit as far as sex goes. So the chairperson is just a person. But that person has to have the strategic mind, the passion, the vision, and the organizing skill in order to build that chapter. That person has to have that. And they have to be able to see the talent in other members of the organization to put them in the right place. to put them in the right place on the CC, on the Central Committee. Back in the day when we was building and structuring the Dallas chapter of the New Black Panther Party, we had members who had certain talents, who had certain skills. Brother E is an educator. Brother E is a bookworm. He's a nerd. So it'd be insane to make Brother E the Minister of Defense. It just doesn't make sense. You have to put E in the place where E shines at. E deals with ideology. E deals with cultural concepts and ideas. That's where E is good at. And so when you recognize that talent, you take that talent and put him where he can function properly. Therefore, as Ward just said, he can actually move and keep that mechanism moving the way it's supposed to be. We had another member back in the day, and I'm not going to go over all the different brothers, but we had another brother named Justice Ali, Brother Ali. And Brother Ali was a people person. He was social. His thing was dealing with the mass of the people, dealing with events. So we made him the community liaison officer, CLO. We created a position that was for the first time structured in a Panther chapter, and we developed that position, and we saw that position was extremely important, and as far as carrying out these missions, and we put that position in that brother's hands because of his natural talent and skill. So the point is, the Central Committee is an extension of the chairman. The Chief of Staff is the executive officer of the Central Committee, or the manager of the Central Committee, which is essentially, for lack of a better term, Chief of Staff is the chairman's secretary. The Chief of Staff is the chairman's quote-unquote vice president, and structures and organizes and trains the chairman's Central Committee, while the Central Committee organizes and trains the mass of the people in the Panther Party. If y'all don't have anything else to say, I'm gonna go into the duties. Y'all got something for me?
I'm good.
All right, let's go into the duties of a Panther. We're gonna go at it one by one. The first duty, the greatest duty of a Panther, is to raise the conscience of the people. Panthers do not create revolution. The people create revolution. A Panther's duty is to guide the people to the correct handling of a revolution. Now, the Panther 48 is not sitting there making all these things up. We didn't pull this stuff out of our anus. And those of y'all that are well read and Panther concepts and ideology, some of y'all see where some of this stuff come from. Some of these is ideas and quotes from Huey P. Newton, from Stokely Carmichael, from Fred Hampton. Y'all will see it there. That's why some of this stuff is quoted. You know, the greatest duty of a Panther is to raise the conscience of the people. Huey said this in Revolutionary Suicide. The duty of a Panther is to raise the conscience of the people. Second, it says a Panther's highest obligation is to serve the people. And 3, the greatest service is to die for the people. Now, I know some of y'all, as Brother E like to say, is clutching pearls when y'all saw that part. Some of y'all right now, y'all done got a little nervous, because here we go, the dudes that promoted revolutionary suicide, telling you that the greatest service is to die for the people. But we're going to go into deeper detail on this. We're going to go into deeper detail on this. We're going to define, develop, and defend. So, explanation 1, we said the duty of a Panther is to raise the conscience of the people. A Panther understands that every action taken, every word spoken, every lifestyle choice of a Panther is meant to be revolutionary, and therefore it should raise the conscience of the people. If a Panther takes an action that does not contribute to the raising of the people's consciousness, then the action is not a revolutionary one. The action can be a bold statement of courage. It can be the correct thing to do. It might be the right thing to do. However, because sometimes you can be ahead of your time. You could be doing something that the people don't grasp. So it could be the right thing to do. However, if it does not raise the people's conscience, it cannot be revolutionary. Matter of fact, if the action, word, or lifestyle choice can be used to mislead the people, and in that process lower the consciousness of the people, it is counter-revolutionary. Why is the raising the consciousness of the people so important? Why does that even have any value? Why is that the big thing? Shouldn't marching in the streets or protesting or fighting against police brutality be the number one primary job of a Panther? Why is raising the consciousness so important? Go ahead, War.
Let me jump in. Well, I would say it like this. We have to back up and see that the whole point of establishing a commission is because we're looking at the current state or condition of our people. So when we talk about that, we see that there is work to be done. We see that that for one, operating through a 10-point platform, we see that our people are dealing with a state of oppression, dealing with a state of being what I always like to say, domesticated, operating without being able to be self-sufficient and in control of their own life. So the whole point of jumping into that and seeing the need to do this revolves around the fact that, well, if my people are in this specific condition, how do I go about addressing those conditions, and how do you break down the consciousness? Because obviously the consciousness of the people are not where they need to be in order to be able to deal with the elements of liberation. Our goal here is to talk about commissioning them for liberation. So that means that our people are not liberated, which also means that their mindset, their state of awareness is not at a position to where they see what that means. So kind of going into the aspect of, and we can build on this aspect of what is it that we're enduring? Because do we recognize what freedom is? Do we recognize what slavery is? Do we know what our condition is? Because people can be frustrated about a condition, but not able to quite pinpoint, why do I feel bad? Why are these things happening to me? Why am I being subjugated to oppression? So we have to know what slavery looks like. We have to know what oppression is. We may be able to feel it, but we don't necessarily know how to identify the tentacles of what that is. And in order to recognize that, we have to raise the consciousness and the awareness of the people. So when we go out and deal with a commission of liberation, and we're raising the consciousness of the people, we have to draw a narrative and a perspective that gets them to be able to recognize where they are and why they're in those positions. So everything is leading toward opening up a new level, a new heightness of awareness of what you are, why you are being subjugated the way you are, and then moving from there.
And I'll go ahead, E.
Oh, so I was gonna say, I think because Asada said it most correctly when they asked her on that Common song, where she had that excerpt from that speech, when they asked her what freedom is. And all she could say, well, her initial statement was, I don't know what freedom is. I can tell you what it's not, but I can't tell you what freedom is because I've never been free. And without that concept, that consciousness of such an ambiguous word, because if you ask people for the definition of freedom, you'll never get the same answer. It's always going to change, and there's no conscious agreement on what that freedom is. So elevating our consciousness, in fact, if we really think about it, I think the answer to that is within kind of a low-key debate that we've had on the back channels. Haven't said a lot about it, but this idea of integration and assimilation, we are not conscious, as he said, of where it is we are in history, where it is our place is, what it is we don't have and do have. But the idea of integration is that you put two non-like things together. Typically one has less power than the other. When we got here, we were integrated. Integrated means you bring them together, but both parties maintain their cultural identities. They maintain a separateness. When we got here, though, we were barred from fully practicing our cultural traditions, our language and all those sorts of things. The actual culture itself survived. There were those of us who still had memories of what it was like back home. And so that culture, that identity, that self was maintained. When we got to the 60s and the whole so-called integration of civil rights and all of that, if you look at the word assimilate means to integrate and lose your identity. The assimilating party loses its individuality, its identity. It takes on the trappings of the more dominant culture. And that's in fact what happened to us during the 60s and up until that point, there was still a cultural a foundation. There was still a cultural identity within our communities. We did things a certain way. We went to work with white folks, or we went out into the world with white folks. But when we came back to our own neighborhoods, we had black attorneys and doctors living in the same neighborhoods as mechanics and grocery store workers and things like that. We would put on the mask. Was it Maya Angelou said we wear the mask that grins and lies? But after so-called integration, after the 60s, we weren't wearing a mask anymore. The mask became full-time all the time, because now we weren't going out and mixing with them and coming back to ourselves. Now we were going to their churches, we were going to their schools. And as time went on, it became, okay, now we're dating. Now we're having babies with them. Now we're having families with them. So our values, our culture submitted, and we assimilated and lost that identity. And so that pulling from those ideas and framing, when we talk about the Malcolm splitting with the with the US organization and with the party, and that cleaving of the culture and the militancy, that kind of highlights that, because along with that cleaving, we left our cultural reference point. And so if we don't have that consciousness of what that reference point is, we're rebellious. A rebel is somebody who just wants the beating to stop. I just want you to quit. A revolutionary says, this is what I want instead, because revolution is just change. And you can't change just leaving one thing. You have to go to something else in order to actually be changing. And so if you don't have where it is you're going to, you can't make that change. You can only try to get rid of what it is that's bothering you, but you can't really make a change because you don't know what you're changing into. And so this idea of freedom, having not been resolved and having not been put in some concrete form, some understanding, and that's one of the mistakes I think you and them made, was the rejection of the cultural aspect of it and not building on it and defining and determining. And that's one of the reasons they rode with Marxism so hard. If you look at Marxism, socialism, communism, they're white bastardizations of African communalism. They took it from us and ran with it. But because we didn't have a cultural context, a backdrop, a history to compare and contrast notes, we thought that what they were saying, they meant, when the reality of it is, whatever ism you get, whether it's capitalism, communism, socialism, whatever it is, as long as you're looking at it from their perspective, as long as you have an individual European mindset, it's going to be the purpose, the point, the freedom is going to be to manipulate and to use that system to the upliftment of the individual, which, without that cultural context, we think that that's where it's at, as opposed to understanding that if we just simply practiced our own, circumvented their interpretations of what we gave them. We gave them these ideas, or they took these ideas, messed them up and gave them back to us. And because we didn't have that reference point, we thought they were giving us something new, something that was a liberation for us. But because we didn't have a definition and an idea and an understanding of what it is we were working toward.
I'm gonna add to that. I'm gonna add on to that, because you getting into what that is. Malcolm said, and I'm gonna give you Malcolm's answer to that question. And the question was essentially, why is raising the consciousness of the people so important? One time Malcolm said the problem with the movement, Malcolm X, he said that the problem with the movement is that we've been trying to organize the sleeping people. He said you have to wake them up before you can organize them. And this is why raising the consciousness of the people is so important. And Malcolm is not, y'all know we use metaphors, symbols, allegories. We're not saying that the people are literally in a bed snoring, but to be sleep means that your awareness is dull. We talked about when the election was going on, we did a few videos where we critiqued the election, and we critiqued our people's response to entertainers telling us who we should vote for. We critiqued that. because Malcolm once said that our people are political chumps. And the only way you can be a political chump is that your consciousness is on such a low level, you don't even understand or recognize politics, political science, or even political maneuvering when you see it. You don't get it. You think if somebody puts Megan Thee Stallion on a stage, she gotta be for us. You don't even get it. So conscious people are able to see that play and understand what's happening, what's going on, what's taking place. And that's why raising the consciousness of the people is so important. I was just watching a video with Dr. Umar not too long ago. He was on the show with, I can't remember the guy's name. He's a comedian, bald head guy. I think his name is Darnell. Can't remember his last name. And only reason I remember it because I didn't even get to finish the show because the dude, the whole show kind of frustrated me. Because here you have Dr. Umar trying to have a serious dialogue. You have his brother clowning and being a buffoon and a fool. And you have the white guy on the show who's actually asking real questions and trying to process the thought, the thinking of Dr. Umar. Matter of fact, it was the white guy that invited Umar to the show. It's the white guy and the comedian, the black comedian. It's their show, and it's the white guy who reached out to Dr. Umar to bring him on the show. Even the clown, I'm gonna call him the clown for the rest of this, but even the clown said it on the show. He said that the white guy was so happy when Dr. Umar agreed to come on the show. So it was the white guy that wanted to sit down and pick Dr. Umar's brain, while this other clown, all he could care about was bunny hopping. That's all he cared about. That's all he wanted to talk about. He was just a fool, and I was extremely disappointed in this guy and in the way he was carrying himself. And it was because he was black. The black dude had to be the fool. But anyway, back to the point. The white guy asked Umar, because the black guy said, a lot of you revolutionaries, a lot of you guys that say y'all for the people, I hear a lot of y'all always run around talking about what the issue is, what the problem is, but you never have a solution. And so he was using that to try to criticize revolutionary thinkers. The white guy come back and told Umar, he said, on a small level, if you was to say that one thing could start leading toward the liberation of your people, toward the success of your movement, what would that thing be? And Dr. Umar's response was education. The people have to be taught. You have to raise their consciousness. When you raise a people's consciousness and they start thinking like free people, then they start building the institutions that actually make your community free. They start building their own hospitals. They start building their own banks. They start building their own education system. He said with an education system itself, if we had schools in different parts of the country completely black owned with a 100% completely African, because he used African, not black, but African curriculum, teaching our babies from knee high how to be themselves, he said you will have those other institutions start popping up in the community overnight. That's how you start freedom. That's how you initiate freedom, by raising the consciousness of the people. And that's why that duty is so important. Like I said, Huey talks about it in Revolutionary Suicide. He said the number one job of the revolutionary is to raise the consciousness of the people. The job of the revolutionary is not to create revolution. The people create revolution. So the revolutionary has to raise the consciousness of the people and teach them the correct handling of a revolution. Huey P. Newton also has an essay called The Correct Handling of a Revolution, where he breaks that idea and that concept down. I'm gonna go to part 2 unless y'all got something y'all want to say. Explanation 2, unless y'all gonna build on that. Go ahead, E.
I was just gonna, what was I gonna say? Something you said about toward the end. All we have to do, the first half of the equation is built in to the situation. The rebelliousness is already there. The desire to change. Even you can take someone, and I'm gonna take your favorite guy, Jay-Z. Jay-Z was rebellious when he was young. He just figured out how to capitalize on it. So he was trying to change the situation, but he chose an entrepreneurial, money-based direction to do that. as opposed to one that's more based on education. So the rebelliousness, even in those of us who have succeeded, quote unquote, who have made it big, were rebellious at one point. So the rebellion part is built in, but raising that consciousness and having a conversation and it's the cheapest thing that you can do. People talk about having to have money to do this. At some point, yes, it becomes necessary to do certain things. But the reality of it is, it doesn't cost to sit down and have a conversation. It doesn't cost. Your bills for the library have already been paid. You go check out sit in the library and read books all day for free. Sight didn't have a bankroll for 17 years, but he was educating folk because he was utilizing what was available to him. So that's a part of raising the consciousness. We're so used to depending on them. I don't care if you're getting food stamps or you are a billionaire. Either way, you're still depending on an outside source to change your situation. Your job to pay your bills, your or the government to pay your bills, to take care of you. Either way, we are on their teeth. And raising the consciousness means being able to see that as a reality and understand, getting, like you said, stop clutching our pearls and getting out of our, I ain't no slave and all of that type of nonsense, and realizing where it is you are. And that's a big part of our problem today. Definition. We don't like to define things. Definition, boundaries and definitions, those are dirty words today. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to want to define and measure things off. But that's a part of the process of dissipating, of coming apart, dissolving. Our communities are not imploding, they're dissolving. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? That whatever angle you look at it, it's a dissolution. Going to the penitentiary. Me and Sight couldn't kick it no more. We were being dissolved. Folk moving across the country, war. Our families and our communities and structures, by whatever different means, we're being dissolved. So to combat that, we have to go back and start defining again, and not be afraid to cut folks off, to draw those lines in the sand and say, this is what this is, and move on it. I mean, if that makes any sense. So that's a part of the raising the consciousness as well. Because we've got plenty of money. Black communities got big money. If you just look at Black people as a people, we've got huge money, but there's no consciousness. So having the money before you have a consciousness is it's what's already happening. And it's a huge part of the issue that we have. We don't have an identity of ourselves. We've been assimilated into a society that, again, says that we're individuals, and if you can't make it as an individual, you're this and that, and these are the only tools that you get to have as an individual. And it's just like Brother David said, if we valued each other, we wouldn't need no money, because we take care of each other. That's what we've always done. And that's why Huey and them didn't see the freedom that they had in their hands. I mean, we literally were taking care of our own children. But because their consciousness wasn't raised in a cultural sense, they couldn't understand, we couldn't understand, most of us still to this day don't understand that is freedom. That's what it is, because we're all depending on them. Jay-Z is depending on their sales, their whatever, to stay in power. You don't believe me? Ask Diddy. You know, the cat that's getting some kind of government assistance, that's obvious. But that's still depending on them, on their system, on what they do. And so the opposite of that, what can we do? Start pushing in the other direction and start developing relationships and learning and understanding based on a reality that's bigger than this white experience that we've had. That's it.
Indeed. Okay, explanation number 2. So Eda got the Commission of Liberation to create a Panther chapter in Bung Duck, Florida somewhere. He's understood the duty of a Panther, without a doubt, is to raise the consciousness of the people. Now let's go into explanation number 2, service to the people. Service to the people is a concept most heard by revolutionaries, but not fully understood. To understand this idea better, we have to do a little vocab rehab. So first, the people. Hold on. So first, let's look at the people. The people. This is not some homogeneous demographic that moves in concert and can be easily detected. A lot of time when we hear the people, we think we have to liberate every black face on the planet Earth. And soon as the guy that's smoking crack don't want to hear what you got to say, that's gangbanging don't want to hear what you got to say, or the sister that's shaking up behind at the strip club telling you, F yourself, Hotep, because they didn't even came up with names for us, for conscious people. They call us Hoteps. That's the name for us. It's supposed to be derogatory. And the word Hotep literally means peace, or our coming peace, or the one of peace. And they telling us that that's a derogatory term now for conscious people, Hotep. Have y'all heard that?
Yeah.
I had. I didn't know that.
Hotep. That's a derogatory term for us. But so it's not a homogeneous demographic. It's not the Lord, and ideally we want it to be, but it's not. The people is an ideal. It is what our people can be once reintroduced to our original self. It is the ideal of a politically mature, spiritually founded, culturally sound, and intellectually astute post-slavery African people. That's what the people is. It is the ideal, I'm gonna say that again. It is the ideal of a politically mature, spiritually founded, culturally sound, and intellectually astute post-slavery African people. And that is what every revolutionary is supposed to be trying to build. That's why raising the conscience of the people becomes so important. A Panther serves this ideal, not to intellectualize about it, but to bring this ideal into reality. The Panther is also a part of the very ideal that they wish to serve. Everything that benefits the people benefits the Panther. So everything that benefits the Panther must benefit the people. This leads us to the greatest act of service. Now I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna allow the brothers to come in, but I want y'all to wrap y'all mind around that. The Panther has to become a part of the very ideal that he wishes to serve, meaning that the individual self must dissolve into the whole. The Panther has to become the ideal of the people. The Panther is the people. So everything that the Panther does must serve the people. Everything that happens for the people serves the Panther. And one of the things we always used to say about a Panther, about a revolutionary, and I'm gonna say it from the male perspective, knowing that all revolutionaries are not men, but it's three men on this line right now. So I'm gonna say it from the male perspective. A true Panther is supposed to be a husband to the widows. He's supposed to be a father to the orphans. He's supposed to be a friend to all the brothers. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you're supposed to be walking around the neighborhood trying to have sex with every woman that don't have a man, but it does mean that you're supposed to step in and be a man in the community to the sisters who don't have a man in their life. You know, the sister might need somebody to help her carry groceries. Sister may need somebody to cut the yard. Sister may need somebody to fix that step on her wooden porch that's been broken. Nobody knows how to fix it. A man, when he walks into a house, he instantly hears that beep from the fire alarm when the battery is low. Women will walk around and ignore that fire alarm, that beep, for months. But a man will walk to the house and instantly be like, oh, it's time to put a 9-volt battery in there to stop that beeping. You know, and that's what it means when it says to be a husband to the widows, to be a father to the orphans. We've been doing that. We call them OGs, even though a lot of them don't exist anymore. But the whole purpose is to mentor the younger brothers and sisters, to be a mentor, to guide them, to teach them, to educate them. And then we have to be a friend to the brothers. When I met Brother E stepped in and became a friend to his brother. He stood there and played that role to the T on every level, no matter where we was at or what was going on. I could tell stories. I'm not going to get into that to the Lord right now. We have a show where we're going to do that, but not right now. But that's the ideal of actually dissolving into the people. You become a part of what it is that you want to see, that change that you want to see in the world. Go ahead, E. I saw that hand come up.
And just a note on the Lord show, so hopefully people will pick it up and hear this and come on in, that some of those stories are like real gangster like shit, according to Psych. You know, I have no street cred, so I'm not the one to judge. But from what I've been told, they're pretty gangster. But it is the elevation of the consciousness when you say the people is an idea. It at once initially in my head, it's okay, I have this idea of the people, what the people should be, what the people could be. But then the question for me I had to ask is, whose idea is it? Because that's still kind of nebulous, I think. But understanding that the people is supposed to be the idea, not of the individual, but of something much bigger. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If this idea of communalism and cooperation and balance and flow and all of these my type things, then the idea has to be of something, you know, idea in the mind of something bigger, and we're just supposed to play that out. So that's that elevation, moving it from it's my idea that I have the people, realizing that no, it's the idea that just exists out there, and we're supposed to embody that. We're supposed to be that. It's that, again, that movement from that individual and understanding that the best bet that the individual has in this world is to invest in the whole, because what the whole does is beneficial naturally to the individual, but it doesn't work in reverse. What the individual wants is typically detrimental to the whole, because it sacrifices the whole. Whereas our investment into the whole and doing what is best for the whole is actually sacrificing. That's revolutionary suicide. That's giving up your former self to invest in something bigger than yourself, which ends up creating a bigger than yourself you. That is evolution. That's what that shit is supposed to be. And culturally, we understand it because we were that. And that's why understanding who we were before we got fucked up here, before we were raped, before we were murdered, before all of the shit that went on, seeing who we were before these same folks, they grandparents and shit, put their foot on our neck, seeing what we do when we do what we do, as opposed to seeing what we're doing after what has been done. I mean, you understand what is that? I don't know if that's making sense. It makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's coming out right. But that's that's revolutionary suicide, step one. All of the rest of that dying for it, that's easy shit, because in my mind, the greatest thing that we're supposed to do is live for the people. But making that first death, yes, that's how you live for the people, is to commit revolutionary suicide, meaning I'm going to invest in them and do what's best for them, because them is me, and that's us. So, anywho, my bad.
True indeed, and that's where a lot of people miss it. What he just said, that's where a lot of people miss it. They hear the word revolutionary suicide and they thinking literally. They're not thinking how we traditionally thought. You know, we talking about going back to our original self. We always thought, and passed down ideas and metaphors, allegories, symbolism, and parables. This is the way we thought. I remember hearing, I think it was Farrakhan that said it years ago. He said that he named off a couple of things that were taken from us during slavery. And he said those things that were taken was the science of war, the science of economics, and the science of symbolism. And the symbolism is so important because we think in symbols. You think in words, but we think in symbols. A word is nothing but a phonetic symbol. When you hear the word, a concept comes to mind. When you see certain things, a concept comes to mind because it's symbolic. And when you hear revolutionary suicide, Huey said in the book, revolutionary suicide is about letting the small I die so that the larger I self can live, so that you become part of the people. He ends the book with the concept I am we, that principle. He said that in his mind, the closest thing that he's actually physically seen that he can consider God is the people. And so if you want to move to God's state, then you have to move closer to being a part of the people. Boy, did you have some on your mind? I see that look on your eyes before I move to explanation number 3.
No, I was just going to say we got to keep in mind that what we're talking about, especially as it applies to raising the conscience of the people, is dealing with the fact that we're talking about a condition that has been crafted in order to strip us of who we are, what we are, where we are, when we are, and why we are. So we're no longer thinking through the mind of a people that understands, and understands what it means to be self-sufficient. And that's operating on within the trifecta of an individual, of a family, and of a community. So when we don't have a proper definition as it applies to be an intact individual, an intact family, and an intact community, then when we dive into raising the consciousness, we have to go back and define what those are, because we can't operate through someone else's definition, because their definition is based upon law number 11 of the 48 laws of power that talks about learning to keep the people dependent upon you, which basically means you have to strip the people of their ability to be independent, ability to not depend on government, to not depend on the slave master, if we want to go into that, or anything that has to do with allowing you to not be able to be victimized or to be oppressed or to be subjugated to a level to where you are doing the labor or doing the actual work for someone else's gain. See, again, we're talking about the people that are that's dealing with exploitation at the highest degree. And in order to do that, you have to dumb me down. And even as it applies on the level to where a person thinks that their access to comfort or their access to distractions make them free, then you have to break that down to them. Because from that standpoint, the average person, especially here in the United States, are living such comfortable, domesticated lives that they like, well, we are free. We can do this. We have the freedom of speech to do this and do that. But what it really amounts to is you're free to be dumb. You're free to be ignorant. You're free to be numbed, and you're free to be neutralized. As soon as you learn what it means to be able to make a choice on your own, to be independent, to operate as a collective and actually determine your destiny, now things are changing. So when we deal with the consciousness, when we deal with the commissioning, it is arming the people of the necessary elements to recognize what we are as a people. This is why Panthers would say power to the people. So we have to go back in and teach our people that we have to define what we are, so that we can then develop where we need to go and then be able to defend that from what we call a continuity, concrete, foundational, generational advancement approach, so that each generation of Panthers or community activists and the people are able to maintain that level of growth and add to that. So the consciousness goes back to that. And like when he was hitting on a little earlier, when he talked about what happened on the West Coast with the Panthers in regards to the US organization, that was the government making sure that what they did is they created a wedge between the consciousness of African culture and identity and that of street organizing and serving the people. So when you created this wedge in this destruction that took place, it turned Huey off to African identity. Now, going into a whole different story for a whole nother show, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture recognized that and stayed on that path and operated from the path of realizing that we have to have culture, which establishes our foundation and identity, which allows us to operate on a higher level of recognizing what liberation means when we talk about establishing a commission. Because like we started out the show, well, if you ask different people what freedom means, they're going to give you all different types of answers. To the average Black person now, what freedom means has to do with being able to go in any department store and consume. That's freedom. But see, again, you're operating on the mode of consumption, which is what they want you to be. So to you, if what freedom means is being able to go buy a Louis Vuitton and any store you decide to shop in and put yourself in debt, yeah, you are free. But again, you are free to be ignorant and stupid and under the control of oppression. operating on that level. So we have to break down what it means to be in control of our means of production. What does it mean to even want to produce and want to build and have an intact community? So when we raise the consciousness of our people, there are levels of awareness that we have to open up. This draws into the difference between perception and perspective. Most of our people as individuals are not operating on any grand level of perspective. We're stuck in our perception, which is what has pushed us in a position of being consumers. So we operate through consumption. Operating through consumption keeps us subjugated in this level of slavery. So as we open our people up to the awareness of the condition that they're contained in, then these things and these principles and these local objectives and the platform of the Black Panther Party starts to make sense. Because if you are not aware of your state of enslavement, then the concept of saying that we're here to help you to liberate yourself don't have any ground or foundation for me to operate from. So I just wanted to throw that in.
True indeed. Last one we're going to build on before we end the show tonight is explanation number 3. And that's dealing with the greatest service is to die for the people. Once the ideal of the people is properly understood by the Panther, true service begins to take place. The Panther understands that the duty and has dedicated the personal self to the service of the ideal of the people. The greatest service is to die for the people. The person that walked into the Panther Party dissolves into the collective. The person dies to become a part of the whole. The individual pursuit is sacrifice for the ideal of the people. I am we. And that's basically what Brother War and Brother E just talked about. You know, Brother War said the average person here feels free because they're able to walk into a department store and get in debt. The individual pursuit is sacrifice for the ideal of the people. The individual pursuit is thrown away. It's sacrifice, it's killed. You know, and it's killed by the revolutionary, so it's revolutionary suicide. Revolutionary suicide takes place so that evolutionary life can begin. And that's the whole purpose. Then when you have people like this, now E has the right type of people walking into his chapter. He done accepted his commission of liberation. He has organized his central committee, and now through the training program that he's developed in his chapter, he has the right type of people with the correct type of understanding in his chapter. A Panther chapter that has understood these beautiful ideals and has manifested the I am we concept will be extremely successful in carrying out the COL. The ultimate goal of a chairman in building a chapter is to realize this ideal through the chapter. A chairperson's effectiveness or lack of will be judged by how close the chairperson was able to develop the chapter to the I am we ideal. Brother War.
Yeah.
Y'all got anything on that?
Well, I would just say it's really you basically really broke it down. I mean, the bottom line is getting the people to get past their guard of what we go into when we talk about the survival mechanism or the survival cause, which is the coping mechanism, self-displacement, and the denial mechanism. We're talking about denial specifically, because denial addresses the fact that I don't recognize that I'm a slave, or that I'm not willing to sacrifice, or I'm not, or from the standpoint of sacrifice, that's what we're going into when we're talking about the revolutionary point of suicide, because the individual has to die. Where am I willing to let go of my being in this comfort zone of being in a position of no accountability for the collective? Because I want to remain an individual that is free to be in this blissful state of not having to be accountable or responsible for my neighbor, for having an intact family, or for defining myself and who I am. So when we talk about that, we have to draw out all of the various symptoms that a people are going through. Because on one side, folks, everybody will complain in the Black community about a police brutality. But yet, when you bring up the work that has to be done in order to address it, problem, solution, they simply want to stick with addressing the symptoms. Why? because again, we as a society of people have been subjugated to deal with suppression as a means of solutions. That's embedded in us. So subconsciously, when we talk about actually going into something with solutions, what most people have been indoctrinated with is basically suppressing the symptoms. So, which goes into the difference between a liberator and a runaway slave. I, for the most part, want to just escape the condition. I don't want to eliminate the condition. I just don't want to experience it. And that's the state of awareness that most of our people are in, is that they just want to get away from the condition. But we have to recognize when we talk about liberation, we want to eradicate, dissolve, and exterminate the position of oppression, which creates that condition that we're in. Why? Because if you simply run away from it just to say you somewhat escape from it, what about the next generation? What about those that you left behind? What about those that are around you? See, that escapism is a big part of the problem. So we have to be, as individuals, we have to be willing to sacrifice that mode of enslavement. We have to be willing to separate ourselves from our chains. We become too comfortable in being victims. So it is a first and foremost necessary step in a process that you have to address it from first and foremost dealing with revolutionary suicide, being willing to sacrifice what you have become as a result of someone else's subjugation of oppression on you in order to be free. You have to go through the stages. And it's no different than someone attempting to work out or attempting to have better health, right? So we're talking about the diet. I can't say that I don't want to have cancer or I don't want to have diabetes, but yet I'm still eating sugar and I don't want to let go of the sugar. So if I don't want to let go of the sugar, how can I say I don't want to, that I do want to conquer diabetes? See, it doesn't make sense. We're dealing with cognitive dissonance at that point. We have to be willing to let go of the one thing that is creating that condition of oppression or that condition of holding me back as an individual, as a family, and as a collective. So once I draw out this and separate the problem from the symptoms, I have to go in and address the problems and not just deal with the suppression of the symptoms. And that's the condition that the society wants you to stay in, is the mode of neutralizing or suppressing a symptom so that you can feel like things are not as bad as what they are. See, that's that we call it also slow poison. You're still being poisoned, but you're psyching and psychologically confusing yourself and tricking yourself into the fact that things are not as bad as they are. And so you endure, and that's what we call coping in the survival mechanism. You're enduring and you're coping with the essence of enslavement instead of actually eliminating. You're learning to cope. So you're learning to just obligate or go over obstacles better and better. You get better. You get good at just jumping and hurling over obstacles, but you're not removing obstacles from the obstacle course so that the next person don't have to go through that same thing. So we are actually indoctrinated with the concept of coping. Beer, alcohol, entertainment, all of the different things are meant to make you cope with being enslaved so that you don't ever build up the right process to want to liberate yourself. So revolutionary suicide is a must and a requirement in the phase of commissioning an operation and in the phase of awakening the consciousness of the people.
True indeed, true indeed. And what we're putting together in the next few weeks, again, if you are serious in any way about being a revolutionary, especially by being a Panther, what we're going to unroll and lay out, and we're probably going to get a lot of detractors coming at us saying, man, y'all putting too much out in the public. But these are the basic things that we want people to know. We want the people to know it, and we want the enemy to know it. We want people to know this stuff. But what we just gave y'all was commission of liberation. The basic foundation of starting and developing your chapter. We have a few more things to give. What a functional chapter looks like, what an educational system, as E called it, the PI. I'm not going to get into too much details because that's E's baby, so I'm not going to get into too much of it. But we got a lot of things that we're going to roll out. So I think that y'all need to be watching us the next few weeks and watch what it is that we share. But I want to end this show with this one, because both y'all said it, that nobody has gave a definition for freedom. And I know this. I understand that any definition we give will always be debated, because freedom looks different to every single person. And when we think of movies like, and most revolutionaries love these movies that I'm about to quote. One of them is the Terminator. One of them is the Matrix. These movies are so related. I don't know if people know the history of them, but they both original concepts was wrote by the same person. Both original concepts were wrote by the exact same person. Black sister, I think her name was what was the sister's name? Sophia. Her name was Sophia. I can't remember her last name, but both was wrote by this sister. The Matrix actually came first. While the movie came last, the Matrix story came first, and the Terminator story came last. By the machines, send machines back in time to try to take out Neo before he becomes Neo, because once he becomes Neo, he's too powerful. So that's why you got the story of the Terminator with the machine trying to take him out in the past, and then you have the story in the Matrix with him coming into the realization of himself. But both stories were wrote by the exact same sister, and both times they stole the sister's story. A good book to read to get that history is How to Hustle and Win Part 2, Rap Race and Revolution, Supreme Understanding, gets into the history of that. And I think there's a video on YouTube that goes into the history of it and how they stole the sister's story. But anyway, the point is, one of the key things that we got to keep in mind, Sophia Stewart, that's the sister's name. One of the key things that we got to keep in mind is that is a key point in the Matrix, at least the first movie. If y'all remember the end of the movie where Neo gets on the payphone and he essentially tells the machines, I can feel y'all out there, y'all afraid. You know, you're scared because you don't know where this thing is going. And he admits, I don't know where this is going either. I'm just gonna show the people what a world without you, a world without your controls look like. And essentially what's happening right there, as we know, when you watch Part 2 and Part 3, him doing this at the end of Part 1 did not eliminate the machines, eliminate the threat, and just free the people. It didn't do that. It brought awareness to the people. What we talking about, raising the conscience of the people, that's all the end of Part 1 did. It brought awareness. It brought awareness to the concept. And that's what my definition of freedom is going to kind of do. So this definition comes from the Uhuru Shule. The Uhuru Shule is a manhood training program that was developed in Texas prisons for young men who essentially had no direction, or at least knew that where they was at is not where they wanted to be, and who desired to raise their consciousness. So in that development of that program, a definition for freedom was developed. And the reason for that is because one of the main things that men in prison always talk about, the thing that they covet more than anything else, is to be free. They always talk about freedom, free. And one of the things I used to tell the brothers, you was enslaved, or you was incarcerated even before you got in here. You had to be incarcerated out there or you wouldn't be here, because everything that your mind creates start to manifest into reality. As Morpheus said, the body cannot live without the mind. So I'm gonna give you a definition of freedom. Y'all ready for me? E, don't start debating on this one because we're too close to closing time. Freedom. This is the power to determine one's own destiny. The ability to exercise self-determination without limits being forced on you due to your mental, physical, or financial lack. Asada Shakur once said, and he quoted it earlier, that I don't know what freedom is because I've never experienced it, but I know what freedom is not. It's not being controlled by someone else's ideal of you. It's not mildly accepting abuse from megalomaniacal authority. It's not living below your true potential for fear of failure. But understanding what freedom is not, now this is not the quote, this is me continuing, but understanding what freedom is not opens up the possibilities of understanding what freedom actually is. See, freedom is a condition governed by three prerequisites: a free mind, a free body, and a free spirit. A free mind is not crippled by lies, miseducation, or false understanding. It submits to its own logic and reasoning above all else. A person with a free mind does not limit their ability to think to what their mama or their grandmother taught them. A lot of times the people in our lives that we love the most were the greatest mental slaves. A mentally free person is able to question and analyze information and accept facts as they present themselves. Then they can use those facts to critically think and make intelligent decisions. So the first step to being free is to have a free mind. And that is the definition of what a free mind looks like. A free body is able to move as it sees fit without being limited by anyone's restrictions, that is slavery or prison. This also deals with being afraid to move for fear of physical violence, that is being in an abusive relationship or being unable to make moves due to lack of finances. In a capitalist society, the lack of finances will most definitely leave you without power. In a song by the rap artist Rick Ross, I know E hates this stuff, but I'm gonna do it anyway. In a song by the rap artist Rick Ross, he said, "Have you ever made love to the woman of your dreams in a room full of money out in London as she screams?" Now think about this with your free mind. Think about the picture that he just painted for you. He said the woman of your dreams, not just anybody that'll have you. He said that a room full of money, which means that you don't have a financial care in the world. Now, I'm not promoting having a room full of money, but the concept is that you're not limited by your lack of finances. He's in London. He says he's in a room out in London with a woman that she screams, meaning that he's not down the street at the seedy motel. He's giving you the vision of a free person, a person that is not thinking with lacks and limitations. And last but not least, a free person has a free spirit. Webster's third definition of spirit is temper, a disposition of mind or outlook, especially vigorous or animated. The fourth definition, the immaterial, intelligent, or sentient part of a person. The fifth definition is mood. The sixth definition, a special attitude or frame of mind. Spirit in ancient times was viewed as the animating vital principle that gave life to the human body. Spirit is the very expression of life itself, animating through you. Anytime that life is depressed, angry, moody, and filled with low self-esteem, you are experiencing spiritual slavery. Your mood should never be dependent on outside conditions or another person's treatment of you. Happiness should come from inside the self. Any other happiness that results from things acquired or people is only temporary and is not true happiness. Spiritual freedom is when you have internal peace based on being satisfied with one's own self. This peace comes when a man understands without doubt who and what he is. This peace is guided by a true understanding of spiritual evolution. When a man gains this understanding, he truly lives in the quote-unquote free world, and nothing can take away his ability to bring about a result or cause an effect. You can lock his body, but you can never restrict his spirit. Hugh P. Newton once said, "The spirit must never be suppressed for exploitation by others. As long as the people recognize the beauty of their human spirits and move against suppression and exploitation, they will be carrying out one of the most beautiful ideals of all time, because the human whole is much greater than the sum of its parts. The ideal will always be amongst the people." So this is the spiritually liberating concept of freedom that I want to build on. And I got one more, because I see that look on E face. He got that look. He got that look. And I'm gonna go into this here, the concept I said, quote unquote, the free world, because in prison, that's how our brothers talk about it. The free world, like it's some mystical place, like it's heaven, like it's paradise. The free world. This is a concept for the thinking, imaginative, and creative person. And prison people would talk about the free world as if it is heaven or some type of paradise that will fix all of their problems. To them, the free world is a place outside the prison walls. These people seem to conveniently forget that they were having more problems in their so-called free world than they're having in prison. Going to prison was just a physical manifestation of the prison that their mind was in when their bodies were supposedly free. They were conceptually incarcerated. And when you are conceptually incarcerated, you can never stop to think and plan for the future. They live for the right now. As long as I can get high, have sex, eat and sleep, I'm good, is the mantra of the conceptually incarcerated person. That person is stuck regurgitating and reconsuming the same thoughts over and over and over again. Freedom begins by first freeing your mind. Once the mind is free from miseducation, lies, false ideas, and misunderstandings, it's better equipped to serve you and coming up with creative solutions for any task in life. To do this, you must study and acquire relevant information for your life mission. You have to accept that if you were born in a country that is a superpower and was educated by a conventional school system, that you are probably miseducated. Open your mind to new information and new experiences. Freedom, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read this last part because this is a whole bill in itself. But the free world from a revolutionary point of view is a mind state free from all limitations, illusions, and intellectual restrictions. The person that possesses this type of mind can never be a slave. He has the ability to produce whatever he wills, regardless of where he may be. This person will forever live in a quote-unquote free world. Peace, or we will leave this earth in pieces in our attempts to gain freedom. This is the Huru Shulei's definition of what freedom is, what it looks like, and how it manifests itself. It goes deeper, and I said I didn't want to read it. It says that once a person gains this type of thinking, then these type of people seek to create a free family, whose family then seeks to create a free community, whose community then seeks to create a free people. And so that's where freedom starts. That's the evolution of it. That is the Neo moment at the end of the Matrix, when he picks up the phone and he tells the enemy, I don't know where this thing is going, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show these people a world without your limitations. That's freedom.
You had me at self-determination. I mean, that's ultimately all we've been saying. That is it, the answer to a question. All the rest of that is what you have to realize in the process of the realization of that self-determination. How a person interprets the idea of self-determination tells you right there, tells them where they are in that, in what they identify with, and what it is most important to them. Because again, Rick Ross, Jay-Z, they're about self-determination, but their self is their individual self. That's what they're making it so that they can decide whether to be with that chick in London or Paris or wherever. That's their objective, is to satisfy that self, that individual based self. You know, and all of that rest of that you said is a part of realizing oneself out of that self, you know, moving into a self that it lives for the all and so rehabilitates the all and gives to the all, gives to all of the individuals that everything that they need, as opposed to a society that or a self that lives and is going to die. You know, there's no even just the idea of just death tells you a lot. So yeah, I'm good with that definition, just that first sentence. You know, I'm not finna memorize all the rest of that. You can forget that. I ain't got to come to study class with my shoes and stuff on. I graduated. I ain't doing it. But no, just that first sentence, you know, freedom is self-determination. That's exactly what Huey and them were doing and didn't realize that they were doing. That's freedom. They were free. So that loops around back to that same idea and our, you know, growth from that identity of oneself to the greater self. So yeah, I'm good with that.
True indeed, true indeed. And Brother What, you got something to say before we close out?
Nope.
All right, this was your Panther 48. Hopefully y'all gained something from it. If y'all didn't gain nothing from this, y'all don't want to grow. It's just that simple. If you didn't gain anything from this, you didn't want to grow. Go ahead, E.
If you invite folks to put if they have their definition of whatever of freedom or what self-determination, to put it in the comment.
Beautiful idea. Beautiful idea. We invite you, we challenge you actually. If you this far, you serious. And if you made it this far, put your definition of freedom in the chat. Put it in the chat. And if it's powerful, we'll build on it. If it's powerful enough, we'll bring you on to build on it. Put your definition of freedom in the chat. Peace and power. This is your Panther 48. Let's get free.
The Black Panther Party, that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you remember I said the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the big. You got to make a distinction. And the people are going to have to attack the big. The people are going to have to stand up against the big. That's what the Panther is doing.
You ask for permission to hit them.